If the Cincinnati Reds don't make changes to their front office after this season, they are proving they don't care.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm Jeff Carr. I'm a lifelong Cincinnati Reds fan and have been podcasting about the Reds for close to a decade now. On today's episode, which is brought to you by Kalshi, by the way, for a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use the code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade $10. Later on, we'll talk about what it will take to keep Brady Singer in Cincinnati next year. In just a few minutes, we'll look at a futile hitting plan. 11 years in the making? Yeah, this ain't just Valleca. But first, let's start with why the Reds should take some cues from Houston, because in case you missed it, the Houston Astros let go of the leader of their front office. They mutually agreed to part ways, and the Reds need to follow suit. The Reds need to do this to prove to everyone else that they care. We constantly hear in press conferences, we constantly hear from people who know the Castellinis and are close to the organization. They're like, they do care. They really care. They care about winning. You want to show it? Get rid of Nick Krall. Start over in the front office. I'm not asking you to spend billions of dollars. I'm not asking you to get out there and raise the budget to an astronomical, compete with the Dodgers, compete with the Mets. I just want a front office that I feel confident is competent in what they're doing. Like, you and I both know that this team is headed for a very confusing 2027. Outside of the whole CBA stuff, we're going to hear about players versus owners and the union versus the league, whatever. All that stuff is confusing enough. But where do the Reds go from here? We've been watching this team grow since 2023. And grow is, an interesting word because it feels like some areas have gotten better, some areas have stayed the same, and most of the areas have maybe gotten worse. But I feel like you cannot watch this team and say they're going in a good direction. That's what the Astros did. They looked at their team and they said they're not going in a good direction. Mind you, we are talking about the Houston Astros that have been wildly successful over the last decade. Think of what the Astros, even currently right now, the Astros are a half game out of their division. And they just had a rough, 2-week stretch of baseball. They had a bad homestand. They lost on a bad final game to the Athletics, and there was a horrible taste in Astros fans' mouths. If you go ask our friends Brett and Eric over at Locked On Astros, they can tell you more about that. But here's the big picture. They're a half game out of their division. And they said, you know what? We don't like this. See you later, Dana Brown. Mutually agreed to part ways. That's the professional way of saying he got fired. But think of what they've done. They're not that far removed from a World Series ring. They've won multiple seasons. They have won their division in recent years. There might be somewhat of ownership meddling or something going on here in Houston, but the point was they didn't like the direction that the franchise was going this year, and they said, let's make a change. What excuse do the Reds have at this point? Are we going to hear about injuries? Are we going to hear about, see that tough schedule in September? Which it's rough. Here on out, it's going to be tough. But I don't want to hear it. They've had injury problems for the last forever, so why not plan for that? The outfield they haven't addressed in years. The pitching staff is very heavily reliant on guys staying healthy, because once they get hurt, then there's just nothing behind them. As much as we talked about the depth of the pitching staff back in February, that was so wrong. It's not deep at all. I'm at a loss for explaining this season outside of the roster was full of holes. And then you point back to the front office for that. There's other reasons you can point back to the front office. So we'll get to the hitting philosophy here in a minute. If you think firing Chris Vallejo is going to fix that, I got something for you there. But look, I mean, the Reds have not finished higher than third in the division since 2012. They haven't won a playoff game. Forget about playoff series. They haven't won a playoff game since 2012. And then we know what happened after that. And they haven't won a playoff series, as we all know, since 1995. What's it going to take? Because as of right now, you and I are both probably thinking the same thing. They don't care. Ownership does not care about the Reds winning. And that infuriates me because I care very deeply about the Reds winning. And I know you do too. And that's where I just have so hard to, like, when people, if you were to tell me that this season was it for you, this season did it for you, it's the nail in the coffin, you're a baseball fan, not a Reds fan, I understand. I'm never going to be that way. I've got a sickness. I think there's probably a disorder related to this. I don't know. I love the Reds, and I always will. And folks like us are going to be around this team much longer than the current ownership group will. Much longer than the current leadership in the front office will. God willing, that's going to end this year. Because if they run it back next year and they say, things will improve, I don't even think I'm going to buy that. Still going to love this team, still going to root for this team, still going to do a daily podcast talking about this team because I love the Reds. Certainly don't love the people in charge. I don't understand how they can watch what has happened this season and say, everything's fine. They're like that gif of the cartoon dog sitting in the middle of the room that's on fire and just sipping his coffee going, this is fine. That's what the Reds are right now. And I really hope they look at what happened in Houston and they say, maybe we need to reevaluate this, because the message that is being conveyed to those of us that love this team is that they do not care about what happens. They do not care about wins and losses. They only care about the bottom line. And I've heard people say this. We've talked about this a lot with many different folks all throughout the season, is that when losses happen like this, we hear the same message every single, they played real hard. They really tried. That's the baseline. They're professionals. They should do that every day. Every team does that. That's not a point of pride. I don't want to say the bad thing. I don't want to say the weird thing. So I'm just going to say the basic thing. I'm done saying the basic thing about the Reds. I care about this team, and I want to see this team win. And if they don't go out and make wholesale changes to this front office, I even saw there were teams that were like firing scouting departments because they don't like how their team is being ran. They don't like the future. They don't like the direction. Reds fans haven't liked the direction for a while. And while we loved a playoff appearance last year, even worried about, we thought maybe they could sneak past the Dodgers somehow. Looking at how this team is built, I don't understand how they can win in the playoffs very soon. Lots of changes need to be made on the roster, but I think the biggest change that the Reds can make from here on out is changing the top of the front office. Coming up next, the most annoying statistic about the Reds lineup has been a problem for over a decade.
I was juggling a couple different apps the other day, and then I realized to myself, why don't I just use our friends at Clutch Parlays, because that is their expertise. Instead of going to multiple different apps to check different injuries and betting lines, I can see it all in one with our friends at Clutch Parlays. And a little bit of bonus there is they give you data to back their bets. Maybe you want to do a double for a star player that night. They can give you the percentage of what they hit on for that exact bet. And that's why I love our friends at Clutch Parlays. But here's the offer for you. Find the best line and build smarter parlays. Track every bet and make more informed betting decisions, all with ClutchParlays.com. Right now, Clutch Parlays is offering a great deal for Locked On listeners. Your first month free on a monthly plan. They want to make sure that you get a real chance to try it out and see what it can do for you. Go to clutchparlays.com today and use code Locked On to claim it. Clutchparlays.com. Bring together live odds, line shopping, predictions, bet tracking, analytics in one place so you can bet with more confidence.
Thank you for making Locked On Reds part of your day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the country. I invite you to join the Locked On Reds Everydayer Club. You can either type in lockedonreds.supercast.com into your URL, or there's a link down in the description. You just click on that. It's $5 for a month or $50 for the whole year. You get ad-free audio podcast feed, and you get access to a Q&A with Steve and myself. We're going to set that date coming up here very soon. For the first one, looking forward to that one. Not going to be released to anybody but the Everydayer Club. I hope you're doing well. Steve's not feeling so well today. A little under the weather. That's why I'm coming to you solo today. But hope you're doing well. When it comes to these Reds, man, like, look, there's a lot of things in this world that, like, a pet peeve. You know, I feel like as you get older, there's certain things that annoy the bejesus out of you, and you really can't do anything about it. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, you've said something. Like driving. Most of the time when I'm driving, I'm saying things. But when it comes to baseball, like, my biggest pet peeve is when a guy strikes out looking. And I think that there's a lot of times that you can say, wow, man, that was just a really good pitch. You know, backdoor breaking ball, something like that. You know, a pitch that you just like, there was no chance for that guy to hit that ball. And I understand that. But on Monday night, late night Reds in San Francisco facing the Giants, if you can name, other than Reiver Sanmartin, who was a former Red, if you can name two of the Giants pitchers that ran out there on the mound, then I commend you. Because I had to look most of them up whenever the Reds face them. Carson Wisenhunt, don't know who that is. A couple of other guys that came out of the bullpen was like, really? But these guys were constantly mowing down Reds hitters who were just standing up there in the box with their bat on their shoulder. Strike three. Oh, look at that. Should have swung. Oh, well. Didn't swing. I'll head back to the dugout. The Reds lead the league in strikeouts looking by a wide margin. At least going into Tuesday, August 25th, the Reds have 333 strikeouts looking, according to Baseball Reference. The next highest team is the Pirates at 309. 24 more strikeouts looking. That's like 3 or 4 games worth, hopefully, for most teams, of strikeouts looking, maybe even more than that. But that is a crazy gap. And so you're probably thinking, the first thought you're thinking is, see, Jeff, this is why they need to get rid of Chris Valaika. Because they get rid of Chris Valaika, they'll stop doing that. And initially, I would agree with you. But then I looked into it a little bit more. You have to go back to 2015 to find the last season that the Reds ranked outside the top 8 for teams for strikeouts looking. That's a decade that they have been among the highest. A couple of years they've led the league. But there's been multiple seasons where they're top 5. And most of them are top 8. It's 10 years now of the Reds just standing there and watching strike 3 go by. There's not like a year here or there where they are really good at not, you know, looking at that called third strike. You got to go back to 2015 for them to be below league average. Because they always have, you know, like a median. You know, they take the teams and the average amount and the average number of strikeouts looking. 2015 was the last time they were below that line. And you'd have to go back and see like what the highest were. I think like the Twins and back in 2023 had something like 440 strikeouts looking. I don't know if the Reds set the record. God knows I don't want to talk about that happening. I really hope it doesn't happen. But it looks like they're going to, you know, finish the season as the team with the most strikeouts looking. And this is going to be yet another year that they do this. It's another knock on the organizational philosophy of this team. And I really wanted to talk about some fun stuff about these Cincinnati Reds all year long, but this year has just been just hammering over the head with problem after problem and hammering over the head with negative stuff. And I try to look back and say, okay, is this an anomaly? Is this something that the Reds have, is this new? Is this something they can get rid of next year? At least for my pet peeve and my least favorite part about baseball, when guys watch strike three go by. The Reds have been doing this for a decade. It's been a while. It's been a while of just, wringing your hands while you're watching the game like, oh, come on. Your skin crawling as strike three is called and there's a runner on second or, God forbid, a runner on third and somebody's watching strike three go by. I mean, even just as an example, this season, Elly De La Cruz leads the league in strikeouts looking. He has 56. Now, there's, I forgot the name. I had it pulled up just a moment ago. But the next guy has 53. So it's not as if he's just absolutely outpacing everybody. But what's wild about this is strikeouts looking make up 40% of all of Elly's strikeouts. And he's done much better at not swinging and missing, not chasing pitches. In fact, his strikeout rate is pretty solid compared to his career average this year. He's improved on that. The thing of it is, he's still watching strike three a whole lot. It's crazy to think that 40% of his strikeouts are strikeouts looking. So yeah, you can say that if you get rid of Chris Valaika, you'd feel better. But getting rid of Chris Valaika does not fix the problem. Because this is something that the Reds have been doing for years. And I wish I had a little bit of a better message than that. But it seems as though it's not simply just a this year's roster problem. It's not simply just a this year's hitting philosophy, this year's hitting coach, this year's managerial team, this year's idea of how to hit the baseball. This is a multi-year problem within the Reds organization. And so that then points me back to the front office. That then points me back to how they do advanced scouting with other teams, how they game plan for other teams. Remember last year, they had a guy, and I'm blanking on his name now. Can't think of it, but they had a guy whose title was game plan management. Like, his whole job was to get the Reds ready for their opponents. He was let go, ironically, after last season. And I don't know if they, sort of absorbed that role into the front office and it's either disappeared completely or it's handled by multiple people or whatever it might be. But it seems as though their solution to the problem that they thought was this one guy is also not a solution. Things are just spinning in place and they're not going anywhere, and this team continues to do the wrong thing at the plate. That's why you see the Reds ranked at the bottom of the league in most offensive categories, except for home runs. Randomly, we asked for more power after last season. They got more power at the expense of everything else. Ugh. It's maddening. But again, that points back to the front office. So I guess what I'm saying is we need a change in the front office. We need a change at the head of the front office. We need a reset. We need to see this Reds team look different in the leadership positions going into next year. Whether they do that now or after the season's over, that doesn't necessarily matter that much. It's not like the front office can do a whole lot from here on out. Trade deadline's well past. But at least you will get a new set of eyes. It needs to be from outside the organization. We need to change the message that is going through this organization because it's clear. It's been multiple years of futility in multiple areas. They overcame some of those last season to make the playoffs, albeit they got the help, too, from other teams collapsing harder. But I think that ultimately the Reds have to look themselves in the mirror. And they've got to make a change organizationally to show those of us in Reds country that they care. Coming up next, Brady Singer is worth hanging on to, but the cost to do so is very important. Make the best of the rest of this MLB season over on Kalshi, where you can trade every single Major League Baseball game, every single performance within a Major League game, just like tonight with Brady Singer on the mound. They have the market for him to record at least 18 outs, i.e., go at least 6 innings, at 52%, which means if you put a $100 trade in on that and Brady Singer pitches at least 6 innings, you get $189.11 for your payout. Because on Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, which means that there is no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. Download the Kalshi app today and use the code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade $10. Kalshi, Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 and up only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Kalshi products are not available in all jurisdictions. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. And before we get into the rest of today's show, it's time for the Everyday Icon presented by Stance. As the official sock partner of Major League Baseball, Stance knows that greatness isn't built in a single moment. It's earned over time through consistency, preparation, and showing up every single day. That's why each week we're recognizing one player whose performance embodies those same qualities. Like today, we're talking about Sal Stewart. It's been a year of being an everyday icon, not just this week. This entire year has been Sal Stewart's year. He currently leads all of Major League Baseball in runs batted in. He is inching ever so closely to the Reds' rookie record for most RBIs in a single season, and he is continuing to hit the ball super well. He is the force in the middle of the Reds lineup. He is the Everyday Icon presented by Stance. Check out the Icon collection from Stance. They've got premium comfort, performance, and durability designed for whatever your day brings. Use the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for 20% off your purchase. Stance, the official sock partner of Major League Baseball. Learn more at stance.com. I invite you to continue the conversation about our Cincinnati Reds after the show is over. You can follow me on social media. I'm on X and on TikTok at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs. You can also follow Steve at S. Offenbaker with 2 Fs. And you can follow the show at Locked On Reds everywhere you get your social media. All right, Brady Singer. He's pitching tonight. It's interesting because we keep hearing different people talking, and I've heard some rumors around the team now that the Reds are not going to use the qualifying offer on Brady Singer. And that's a good thing because they shouldn't. It's very likely that the qualifying offer will be something like $23 million next year, maybe even as high as $24 million. Because I've read now, I wasn't sure if it was going to continue. Didn't know if it was going to end with the new CBA. It might end for next year, but I think decisions on the qualifying offer have to be made before December 1st. So this could still happen. The thing of it is, looking at his value, comparing it to other guys on the free agent market and what they got last year and what they might get this year, I think that Brady Singer will likely be looking for a multi-year deal, and he'll probably cost somewhere around $15 million a year. That could be, give or take $1 million here or there. It could be 14, could be 16, whatever that might be. But that's kind of what I'm thinking for Brady Singer. He's going to be 30 years old next year. He's been a fine pitcher. He's not been an amazing pitcher, but he's also not been horrible either. I think some people like to over-exaggerate his struggles and like to discount his successes because he does have successes. And I think that he would be a great stabilization for this rotation that we already know will be in turmoil starting the year without Hunter Green and not having him at all next year at any point. Because I do not expect him to find some revolutionary recovery from Tommy John and then all of a sudden he's back in August. I think there's not going to be any point next year where we talk about a Hunter Green start. So we're not going to see him till 2028. And looking at the rest of the Reds rotation for next year, you feel a lot better if Brady Singer is around. Because you got Chase Burns at the top. Nick Lodolo, we're hoping, can figure some things out. And with the benefit of an off season, Nick Lodolo is going to be able to work on that breaking ball and get more comfortable with it, get more comfortable with working it in with his other pitches. So I feel like there's going to be some version of Nick Lodolo that is useful for this starting rotation next year. So I include him. Andrew Abbott, obviously. I include Rhett Lauder. I've liked what he has done, albeit working through injuries and coming back from his lengthy injury stay from last season and dealing with another injured list stay this season. I still think he's been all right. But then who? Like, Brandon Williamson, maybe, and hopefully we see him here coming up soon. I think he's probably the replacement for Chase Burns in the rotation once they shut down Chase Burns. But he's working his way back in AAA, looking like he's healthy, which is the important thing in any rehab stint. But is Brandon Williamson going to be your number 5 starter? Maybe. Is it going to be Jose Franco? He's dealt with a lot of injuries this year. Is it going to be Julian Aguiar? Dealt with a lot of injuries this year and not looked all that great on the mound, but that might be just a byproduct of health. And then Carson Spires made his triumphant return, or at least he's making a rehab stint and he's going to work his way back to AAA. But he is getting healthy again. So could those guys vie for a spot? Sure. But we talked about this back in February. Just because those guys are on the list doesn't mean I can totally buy into any of them, because injuries are a big factor with all of them. And quite frankly, injuries are a big factor with Nick Lodolo and Rhett Lauder, at least to this point in their careers. So until they prove that they're not, it would be silly to completely discount them and say, yes, no, they will be 100% healthy. If you take out any of those top 4 due to injuries that likely happen in spring training, then you are putting in one of those other 4 that we're not sure about, and that's if they're healthy. And then if they're not healthy, who knows? So you need Brady Singer to kind of stabilize this thing. It's a bummer, because I kind of felt that coming into this season, it was great that he was here for this season because he was the stabilization for the rotation to get to its next form for 2027. I kind of feel like that got kicked down the road a little bit. That idea got pushed back, and now we're still trying, okay, what is the future form of the Reds rotation? It'd be nice if Brady Singer was here to help us figure that out. So, yeah, if I'm talking about a 3-year, $45 million deal for Brady Singer, I like that. And I'm expecting, I don't think we are going to enter into next season with the exact same economic structure. I don't know if it's going to be a salary cap, salary floor situation, but something tells me that if we're not doing a hard cap and a hard floor, we are going to do some sort of competitive balance tax thing. You know how they do the competitive balance tax at the top? I think they're also going to create something at the bottom. So there's going to be some sort of floor that, okay, if you don't want to pay for a roster that has X amount of dollars in it, then you're going to pay some sort of penalty. And so then the Reds will need to get up within that range. Everything that we've seen as far as like salary cap, salary floor has been around the floor has been around the $170 million range. The Reds would have to add something like $40 million, $45 million of payroll to get up above that floor. Now that's $45 million for 1 year, so $15 million for Brady Singer. You still have plenty of money to work with, and that's why I'm okay with this. I'm not okay with $23 million, because then you're spending more than half of what you're likely going to spend, and probably a good portion of what you're going to spend on Brady Singer. And again, that's this year's payroll. This year's payroll, a lot of it is going away, and then we're going to rebuild it for whatever the salary floor looks like. So there's going to be money to spend. There's going to be cap, and or a sort of cap that the Reds have to delineate different players on. And if you're telling me that you're going to pay $15 million for Brady Singer, I'm okay with that. Because here's the deal. What's the alternative? The alternative would be that they're then going out on the free agent market and looking for somebody who's around $10 million, who's likely not as good as Brady Singer, and likely somebody who's like in a bounce back or something. Like, I mean, we're going to talk about Walker Buehler, who's really struggled again this year. Are we going to talk about, Jose Quintana? Like, these guys are. I don't want to see the Reds go bargain bin shopping, which feels like what they would end up doing if they let Brady Singer walk. And does Brady Singer garner some sort of bidding war? I don't know. But I think it's likely that a deal would satisfy him and his agent at 3 years, $45 million. Be interested to see if the Reds offer that. Thanks for checking out today's Locked On Reds podcast. Sorry we were so heavy. Like, I really want to talk about some fun baseball stuff, but as of right now, it's a lot of when it comes to the Reds. And we'll be back on the fun train whenever there's fun stuff to talk about every single day here on the Locked On Reds podcast. Make sure you subscribe. We'll be with you every single day. Coming up tomorrow, Steve will be back with us. We'll talk a little bit more about Brady Singer and his value for next year. I also kind of want to get his thoughts on a few guys who we will see changing teams for the Reds. That'll be on tomorrow's Locked On Reds podcast. Make sure you follow us. Make sure you check us out on all the social medias. Follow Steve at S. Offenbaker with 2 Fs. You can follow me at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs. And you can follow the show at Locked On Reds. There's no Fs in that. For those of you on video, we're going to send you now to the first ever 24/7 Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And those of you on audio, make sure you make your second listen Locked On MLB. Until next time, we will be Locked On Reds every single day.